Hey everybody, I just wanted to do a quick video here today to talk a little bit about the 0.62 build of DayZ, which was recently released out onto the stable branch on early access on Steam after having spent a week or so on the experimental branch. This is kind of a weird one for me. I always feel a little bit weird talking about DayZ on the channel these days. I know the last video that I did about this game kind of had some mixed results, and I always have some kind of mixed feelings talking about it in general. But as I said in the previous video, for me, DayZ is just one of those games that I always think of as being sort of like a fundamental foundation of this channel. When you go back and you look at some of the original videos that I posted and the first series that I posted that really got a lot of views or that had any sort of decent reaction to it here on YouTube, it really does in a lot of ways come back to DayZ, at least DayZ Mod. And I've always had a lot of hope for DayZ Standalone ever since it was first announced. The idea that they could take those great, amazing ideas that were embodied in the form of the mod and turn it into a full-fledged, fleshed out, standalone game experience. And of course, it's been several years now since DayZ entered early access, and while there certainly has been progress with the game over those years, it's been, to a large extent, painfully and in a lot of cases tediously slow. And so I'm always a little bit reluctant to do a new DayZ video for standalone because it's a little bit dicey to try to determine when the game has made enough progress to really justify covering it again. And honestly, I don't think there's a huge amount of difference between the 0.61 version that I looked at in the last video that I did for the game and this 0.62 version, other than the fact that, according to the DayZ development team, this is going to be the last alpha version of the game. So supposedly the 0.63 version that they're currently working on is going to be the first quote-unquote beta version. And I think that's a really interesting development on a couple of different fronts, and it's really the main reason why I wanted to talk about the game for a few minutes here, because to me, as a software developer, as somebody who's made a career and a profession out of software development, when I hear the terms alpha and beta, they mean very specific things to me. And to me, an alpha is the stage in software development where you're continuing to add new features and new functionality to a product. And basically, when you make the transition in software development from alpha to beta status, that's basically you saying that all of the features and functionality that are supposed to be in the product are there, and the beta process is just meant to polish and refine and optimize and otherwise tweak those features. And I have to say, for me, looking at this current build of DayZ, I'm a little bit scared by the fact that they are willing at this point to consider making that transition from alpha to beta status regarding this project. To me, when I look at the core fundamental functionality of DayZ as a game as it currently stands in this 0.62 release, I feel like there's still quite a number of features that I consider to be either outright missing or only partially implemented or otherwise sort of sketchy in their implementation, to the point where I don't know that I would feel confident as a developer myself trying to make that sort of leap. And I know at a certain point, you look at a project like DayZ and you say, man, this thing has been in early access for going on 4 years now. And, at some point you just kind of have to bite the bullet and say, okay, the thing sort of is what it is, and now we need to look at refining and buttoning this thing down and getting it ready to actually be complete and a shipping product. And I definitely understand that, but I also feel like for me personally, standalone, while it's much closer than it's ever been in the past to providing the same sort of thrilling, innovative, interesting experience that the mod originally did, it still lacks certain things that, for me anyway, are almost like deal breakers. When I look at loot generation and loot distribution and how that functions within the game environment, just basically the whole idea of being able to run through a small town or a small to large city environment and run through dozens and dozens of buildings trying to find scavengeable loot and having a hard time finding enough to even scrape by and survive, and knowing that in a lot of cases you're going to be doing that on maps with several other players if you play on an at all populated server. I really feel as though there's a lot of work that still needs to be done on loot spawning and loot distribution. Additionally, I still have a lot of issues with the way zombies work in the game, especially for it being a quote-unquote zombie survival game. I think the way melee combat currently works, the way weapon animations currently work, the way zombie propagation and spawning and travel and behavior works is all still so primitive to my thinking, especially for a game that's been in development for 4 to 5 years at this point. I understand that there are a lot of things that are coming in the 0.63 version regarding animations and a lot of various systems and subsystems that have been going through various refinements and iterations over the past several years. But I think, as I said before, that it may well be premature on their part to say that this upcoming 0.63 build qualifies as worthy of transitioning from alpha to beta status. Now, of course, I would love to be proven wrong here. Nobody wants this game to be done and complete and functional and live up to its full potential more than I do. Every last shred, every last little bit of optimism that I have regarding this project is kind of at this point pointed squarely at that 0.63 build. I'm really interested and curious to see what they're going to end up doing with it, because to me, it's almost like a last chance for this game. If they're going to make that statement and come out and say, okay, we're leaving alpha and we're going into beta, and this is what we're going to present to you as the DayZ community as the beginning of our beta branch, that 0.63 version is going to have to really kill it and knock it out of the park in a way that I'm personally very skeptical of based on what I'm currently seeing in 0.62. It's definitely a bit of a mixed bag for me. And again, as I said at the beginning of the video, I have some very strong, potent, nostalgic feelings about DayZ as a concept and as a product, largely based on the time I spent playing it with friends when it was a mod for Arma 2. But even in the context of standalone, I still have a lot of hope or desire for this game to really manifest and become the thing that I believe it has the potential to become. And so I just wanted to make this video and talk about that a little bit. And I'd be really curious to know what you folks think and feel about DayZ, especially after having so much time pass and so little progress seeming to be made on various fronts, especially with regard to the core gameplay. When I look at DayZ and I think about the things that made the mod great and fun in my mind, it was the loot system and the way that it worked and propagated and distributed throughout the environment, the advanced sort of end game play behaviors like going inland in search of better loot, going and trying to find parts to put vehicles together and build and drive and fly those, and also the ability to play with friends and sort of squad up and reach each other within a reasonable amount of time, and being able to survive to a point with a fresh spawn where you could relatively easily make contact with friends who are also playing the game and get together and play as a unit. I really feel like those areas in particular are areas where I see standalone still currently struggling, and I'm really hoping that when this 0.63 build finally does hit, at least some of that stuff will be represented in it. Because what I really want to be able to do with DayZ is to get together with some friends, do a little running around, do a little initial scavenging, get together with them with some basic equipment, and then head inland in search of car parts and advanced weapons and things like that, and try to carve out an existence for ourselves, or maybe even set up a little camp or a little base or something, or a little tent colony, and then just try to survive for as long as we can in that environment. And I understand that as far as initial setup and survival goes, the dynamics of the game have changed somewhat with being able to harvest worms and fruit and things like that. But I really do miss the way the looting system in the mod used to work, where when you rolled into a new town or a new city area, you really felt like you had at least decent chance of finding a few cans of food or a few basic survival supplies that would help you establish yourself and make your way to hook up with your friends and get to better, more interesting parts of the map. And I feel like that's a real issue with Standalone as it currently exists, because every time I've tried to play this game recently with friends, I've felt as though it's been more of a struggle than it's been worth, and especially in comparison to the fun and engaging and rich experience the mod was during the time when I played it most heavily. So I think that's just about going to do it for me for this video. I don't want to ramble on too long about this stuff, and I feel like I've made my points. But as I said before, I would be interested to know what you guys think about DayZ in general. If you like seeing it on the channel, if you have specific things that you want to see or know about the current state of it, if you miss the old school group DayZ videos that I used to do back in the day, any of that sort of stuff, feel free to leave it in the comments below. As always, if you did enjoy this video, be sure to hit that like button. And if you want to see more videos from me in the future, be sure to hit subscribe. And I will see you next time.